Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For roll call, let's just go around the table. I'm Jill Jackson.
Nicole Ford. Gail Snyder.
Bill Meredith.
Mary Wilkerson.
Dennis Brownfield.
Beth Baird.
Jonathan Knight.
Jeff Bellamy.
Okay. And our guests.
Joshua Snyder.
Brian Baird.
Diana Amy.
All right. So we have a resolution for Nineveh, and it's my understanding we're just going to make this. We're not voting on anything tonight. We definitely want to have any public comment. Any public here. Jeff, if you want to start off by kind of just reviewing what the resolution says so that everybody understands, and then we'll open it up for public comment.
Absolutely. Again, Jeff Bellamy, I'm attorney assisting on this project. I represent dozens of townships, some municipal groups, all kinds of fire territories, all kinds of fire districts throughout the state. And this has been a real, my practice is hectic. This year's been really hectic because of, you may have read about it, Senate Bill 1 and Senate Enrolled Act 1. And really I go through what I call territory season in the first quarter of the year, kind of come back from that, running up and down the highways through the state of helping people organize fire territories and sort of decompress, and that never really ended till about the 4th of July of everyone going through what the heck was left after the legislative session. And so I think what we will see happen in this conversation is ahead of the game for where we may be for the next several years with the state. And one of the maybe intended or unintended consequences of Senate Bill 1 is that units, unincorporated units like townships or libraries or other kinds of districts that used to get certified lit shares, LIT, income tax shares, that's no sure thing after the end of 2027, and it will just be your property tax levy. And so in order to continue to put on the civil obligations of the townships going forward, if the counties do not decide to adopt an unincorporated lit, and because these townships get their fire services through other means, those services may have some access to some future lits. But a civil levy or a civil lit for unincorporated units is no certain thing. And nothing that we can control in this room. That would be controlled by the county council. And so I see this coming down kind of two courses. I was in Kosciuszko last week. You are closer than Kosciuszko. It's about as scenic a drive. And they were looking at 4 units. I did a memo today for a possible Boone combination. I don't know if we'll see another combination here in the county. I know it's been talked about. But you would be the second, if successful, permissive merger in the state. You all know Lydia, Franklin, Union, Needham combined. And it's been a few years and it's been pretty successful, I think. You can look at what they've done, and they've been able to provide more services, better services, different kinds of services to deal with the things that are emerging in the Franklin area. And you've got the only 2 hired help in the state that have ever got one over the finish line. You've got the lawyer and you've got the accountant. So Gail did our financials, I did the legal. I think DLGF essentially asked us, did we really mean to do it? And said, yes, we did. And they said, okay, there you go. there's no beaten path. We're sort of cutting a path here. I think we'll see more of these as we go, and I think one of the consequences of the legislation was to try and get more of these marriages. So what do we have to do? We have to do procedurally two things. You've done some extra things. You and your trustees have done some due diligence on your own and lots of discussions about how do we make these combinations, what kind of due diligence do we need to do. I think they've been pretty thoughtful and successful at that so far. And then tonight is your first official step, and that is introducing the resolutions. And so I've given you copies of the draft resolutions. We got a little bit of information we have to put in them to be final. But what these are a process where we publicly post this meeting that you are considering a merger between the two townships and what will remain. Functionally, the 6 board members will become 3 board members. The 2 trustees will become 1 trustee. And then that group going forward will decide what's the best way to administer the remaining services. How do you do township assistance? How do you take care of your weed requirements, your fence requirements, and your cemetery requirements, and the other miscellaneous business that trustees still do? I think the trustees both agreed that township assistance would still be adequately covered, perhaps even enhanced because of having a little bit of lift and a little better information or knowledge of that you've done the merger. And there's just not a super high demand in this area. I know there was some hope of adding the other southern township. He did not want to. That's fine. Go with who wants to be with you, and nothing precludes you in the future from there being an additional merger at a later time. What's required as part of the merger is that tonight we should, if you wish to go forward, find the date where we actually publish, and we will publish in the paper that you are going to consider adoption of the resolutions. And that would basically accept the plan for merger and 1 trustee, 1 board going forward. I would take care of that notice. I would work with the trustees as we've done thus far. And we need to pick that date. That date can't be any sooner than 30 days from when we sit right here. So I'd say count 31 days, and that's the earliest date we can pick that session. Technically, we have until, and Gail and I have gotten some clear enough opinions from DLGF. I think so long as we turn in your merged budget in the normal time when your budgets would have to be done by before the end of October, they will accept it. It would be better to get this second session done in that 31, 32 day range. You can go up to 90 days. I don't see any reason why we would want to do that. You should have some sense within 30 days if this is something you want to do or don't want to do. I think because these are more rural townships, we don't have a lot of property we have to exchange. That was one of the beneficial things also with the FUN merger. They were having fire handled elsewhere. There's not a lot of property to sort out one way or another. And even if so, we did quit claim deeds and other things that sorted those things out. Those can always be caught up and wound out as we find them. Someday I will do a merger where we've got a couple fire departments, and it's going to be complicated. But that's okay. We'll be able to deal with those as they come. If you want to do this year is your year, because next year you can't do it. This is only allowed as a permissive process in off years from elections. Next year's an election year, and apparently the Secretary of State can't get the ballots changed in time. Going forward, once you merge the next election, you will have a representative from each, and then I think they will deal with the third as an at-large. What you should come up with as part of your plan and should discuss tonight, or at least decide by the next, which member will remain from each board, and then who among those that are participating, who do you want to select as the at-large person? They will finish until the next board election. because you step away or you decide, well, I may take a pause, that does not mean you cannot throw your hat in the ring or step forward or be caucused in if there is an opening in the future. You absolutely can. If you're from the opposite township, you could go in at the at-large spot, but we need to have at least one from each. We can't have 3 and none. You can have 2 and 1, depending, but we can't have 3 and none. We have to have someone from each. So it'll feel a little foreign, a little unusual to start, and then it'll just be the way it's always been soon enough. You will not have any obligations in handling any transfers of money. The trustees will work on that, but on 1/1/26, all funds need to be transferred over into the new unit. Any debts or obligations, any bills that are hanging out, the new township pays. We just move right on. Those funds all kind of merge in. So that's one piece of information we gotta walk away with tonight. We've gotta enter the hearing date. So hopefully we get our calendars out and look 31 days out and say, does this look good or not? And pick that date. That notice has to be published 10 days in advance. So I've dealt with shorter deadlines, but it's not just exactly like, oh, we picked 31 days. Not all newspapers will run their notice for you the minute you decide you want to do it. Betty, in Hendricks County, if you don't get it in by Tuesday, you can't have it till the opposite Thursday. So whether or not you turn something in before or afternoon out there makes 2 weeks of difference. And then the next thing I think we need to go through, and Gail will get the information from me afterward, but we should preview. This was my dumb joke for when we did the Franklin Union Needham merger. You will have some savings. At the time, we were finishing the north stretch of I-69 just adjacent from there. The annual savings you will achieve, or they achieve, they blow away in an afternoon of overtime on a Saturday working on I-69. There will be some savings. Should we try to save where we can? Should we try to be efficient where we can? Should we try to eliminate duplication where we can? Absolutely. If anybody's under any illusion that we are solving the state's disappearing $2.5 billion or the $500 million FAFSA shortfall, we can't merge enough units together to get that back. We looked at 4 units in Kosciuszko, a 4-unit quad, and they're doing the financials themselves. We did back of the envelope stuff, and we came up with a range of 28 to 32. Chief knows right now. He thinks maybe like I think. That's two outfitted firefighters. Not paying them, but that's boots, cowl, helmet, coat, and that's it. That's 2. So should we try to do that where we can? Absolutely. We are not buying fire trucks. We are not buying fire stations. We are not buying ladders. It's just, you're not paying their PERF for their benefits or their 77 fund. You're not achieving that kind of savings. There will be some savings. Hopefully it is enough savings that when the faucet for lit narrows or even closes, you'll just have a little bump and you'll move on. You'll have enough civil levy to continue to operate the township in an appropriate way, and you can give assistance to those that need it, and you won't feel any diminished hit. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Really what we need when this session ends from the boards is a let's go. If you decide no, you don't want to go forward or pick another date, we'll be done. If you do want to pick another date, we'll coordinate calendars. That's what we need from you tonight. You're not approving the resolution, you're not voting on it, you're saying let's get a hearing for it to approve it. Any questions come up in the meantime, just shoot your trustee a note that we've had a real good communication on little questions and changes going back and forth. So it's going very smoothly, I think. And I'm happy to answer those questions. I'll answer any questions you have tonight, but you'll see on the second page of both, we are required to notify the resolution, we are required to notify the DLGF how much per 1 unit do we believe there would be an estimated savings. And then how much in the remainder unit, meaning the new unit, we need to, we won't go completely, it'll be a net savings. So we'll go down some, but then up some. Without coordinating on it, Gail and I were right in the exact same spot. You will have a reduction of one trustee's salary, the lowest 3 board members off. The board should go up to the highest, whatever board rate is being paid now, and all 3 go to that number. And we go through and just look at programs, leases, off any equipment, whatever, and go, don't need to, don't need to, don't need to, and that's the total savings. But we also thought you should look at the 3-year run of assistance. And what was the highest point for both? Combine those, and then give a 10% buffer on whatever the highest is, to make sure that if you have a bad year, you have enough coming through that you can handle any assistance, and then look at maybe very slight raise for whoever's taking on the bigger job. So you'll have what I would call net savings, but not absolute savings. So I would happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to turn it over to Gail. And then of the 2 things you need to do, one, decide tonight if you want to go forward, and then we would have the future hearing, then you would hear from the public, and then decide if you want to go forward.
I have a question.
Ma'am.
Maybe Sue, maybe you've already answered it. What if Blue River eventually decides to join? Are they gonna be able to join R2?
They can. And what will happen at that point, they can't next year.
They can't next year, but they
And
can.
if you want to, if the merged board, so whoever remains on the board, and maybe there's a change of heart there, and they decide it would be best for them,
Or they may be forced.
Perhaps.
Right?
perhaps, you never know. I
see
think,
that happening.
I think, and no one cares what I think. I'm getting used to that.
Oh, we do.
Well, no one in the State House cares what I think. I think they could leave the question of forced merger, whatever, alone. Senate Bill 1, because of the reduction of lit, is going to create a lot of marriages of requirement. And they're gonna sit down and talk, particularly those that are relying on lit to operate their fire. They're going to have conversations of, we simply don't have the bandwidth. And the state is tightening belts because, everything flows from every level above. And so, because you're seeing that narrowing, they're gonna have to talk to each other. So, right now, I don't wanna do it, I don't want to be part of it. And then at the end of 27, when that faucet's over, they may come knock and say, it doesn't make sense. And then you do this again. And then I think you're in a position where you decide whether or not, what they're proposing is what you want to do. So the door's not closed forever. I really like 3s. I really like the idea that it's your southern portion. I really like that there's an identity and a population density along that southern band that's different than the middle band, that's different than the northern band. And ideally, you would come up with that kind of consolidation. But right now, it's permissive and voluntary, so that may change. Sure. And then once we pick that next date, the only other thing that we'll need from you is your vote and signed resolutions. The trustees, Gail and I, run with it from there. As I started, Secretary of State, DLGF may ask some questions, but Secretary of State and the court clerk will just go, did you really mean to do this? So the county clerk at the time, when we did the first one, and Secretary of State, they did not know what we were giving them. That was all news to them, so we walked them through and it all went fine. So, didn't mean to belabor that too much. Go
I
ahead.
think I've had my question answered, but if Hensley Township sets their budget, which we do this year for 26, right? Okay, then that would not be voted on until the new board was in present, or it wouldn't be active until,
Well, no.
I mean, who gets to vote on our budget?
We will have to accept a merged budget if you, and that's what Gail will work on and showing you what that merged budget will look like. So what's unfortunate about having it in the second half of the year rather than the first half of the year is you kind of have to run a plan B along with plan A. So you have to have your standard, if this doesn't go forward budget, you'll still have to adopt a budget. But as part of this process, you will be able to, we will have to submit the merged budget with this to DLGF. So that's what Gail is gonna talk to us about, what kind of savings you think you could achieve.
Well, she hasn't seen our budget for 26
I
yet.
have,
has she?
yes, I have.
Have we set that already?
Well, we
haven't.
It hasn't been set by the board of Florida.
No, we haven't
It's
had
just
our
the
meeting to
submitted
adopt.
budget, I've seen a copy of the submitted
Okay.
budgets, the requested budgets. So I can.
But I'm saying between now and then, if we wanna add something to the budget between October and now, is that gonna be permissible or not?
So once we, so I met with the Department of Local Government Finance today on the Nineveh budget. And I don't know if you want me to just start
Yeah,
in on
yeah.
that. Okay, so for 2026, since we're in budget time now, we're in this part of the year, we're very late in the year. The way we've decided to do it, and we being us and DLGF, is that Beth has prepared the Hensley Township budget to present to her board, just like we always do. Then the two have worked together to combine the budgets, because we have to have them both ways in case for whatever reason, the merger doesn't go through. We've got to be sure that Hensley still has their budget next year and Nineveh still has their budget. So Hensley budget is being presented in to the board, to the DLGF as normal. Nineveh budget, what we've done is we've combined the two and we presented that as the merged budget under the Nineveh budget. And the reason we did it that way is because in budgeting, you can always go down, you can always reduce, you can never go up. So if for some reason the budget, the merger, for whatever reason, doesn't go through, which I do not anticipate that, then we'll just reduce Jonetta's budget back down to where it would have been anyway. So I would say, if you're wanting to make changes, I can show you the combined budget. You can look at what Beth has presented. You can look at what Jonetta has, or they put together.
Right.
And if you want to add something to that, now is the time, because it hasn't been published yet. It will be published soon in Gateway. And once it's published, you can't go up in the total. You can move things around, but you can't go up in the total. So does that answer your question?
You mean, whatever she's presenting right now, we can't go above that?
Once it's published,
Okay.
once it's published, which it's not, right? I shouldn't speak for you.
No.
Okay, yeah. None of it has been published yet.
Okay.
So,
So between now and September, or, do we need to?
not
if
really.
there is
Are there specific things that you're wanting to increase?
possible.
Okay, I would make the suggestion that you decide that when's your first board meeting?
September 9th.
Okay, when do you intend to publish? I was gonna go ahead and publish the combined budget pretty soon, actually. So this year's a bit unique with this merger. I would suggest any increases you want to make, and I know this is way before your public hearing, but because of the way we have to meet these deadlines with the merger, I would suggest if there are things you think you might want to add, you do that now.
Before the September meeting?
Yes, because once,
Can we call a
Because-
special meeting
because
between
once,
now and then to do that?
because once this is published, and we have put, the ladies have worked together, and we have put, I think there's ample amounts in these line items that could be moved around.
Very well.
So if there's things that maybe I don't know what amount you've got in mind.
Not astronomical,
Well, we've got,
Just, there's things we've talked about in the past, but we've never done, maybe that we might want to do.
okay,
And it may not materialize.
okay.
But if there is an opportunity, I'd like to see us have that opportunity.
Well,
And I'd recommend too, whatever that adjustment is, if you want a special meeting, it's up to you. But if there's an amount that you think is short, we're writing in pencil right now.
right,
Pencil it up to where that's at, because exactly what Gail said is that if you don't appropriate it, you're either not gonna do it or gonna have to have an additional appropriation later. So now is the time to put that in, and then for whatever it's
You
for.
can hold it off a while on your
well,
publication.
this year in that regard is no different than any other year. Typically, the trustee comes up with a published budget, and we publish that before, I don't know, most of the townships I work with, the board doesn't review it before it's published. Do they here? Okay, so it's really no different than ever. Once it's published, the total cannot be increased. I think we've made it high enough so that we've covered anything that we might even anticipate might be necessary, But Jeff is right, if there's something, if you look through here and you compare, this year's to last year's, and there's something that you wanna add, I would pencil it in now before we publish it,
Okay.
okay? Does that help you answer your
Yeah.
question?
Answer
Okay.
my question.
Okay, so that's what's happened. I've been working with Beth and Jonetta, and we've come up with a proposed combined budget. The savings that I anticipate in the budget is, I've come up with 12,796, and that savings, as Jeff said, it's not astronomical, but it is, you're reducing your trustee salary down to just one. You've only got one, 3 board members instead of 6. You're not paying, both townships aren't paying rent on offices, utilities. As far as township assistance, there's really no savings there. That's not gonna change. So the savings basically comes from those items, and that was the difference we came up with. The levy, the tax levy, so in addition to, you guys wanting to do the merger, because of the Senate bill, as Jeff talked about a little bit, townships, not only is the lit over the next couple of years gonna be something you're gonna have to request from the county council, and you may or may not get, there's also a requirement that every single township has to now prepare a capital improvement plan. And so we have to do this. Beth is gonna go ahead and do it for Hensley, correct? And I'm gonna prepare the one for what we're gonna call the combined township. And if that's not done, there's no levy for anybody. So that's another new thing that's happened. And the other thing is, we're not going to reduce the tax levy, because with lit possibly going away, it would be, to me, it's just, not prudent to reduce the tax levy. This whole process will change the tax rate, but the overall maximum levy, what I presented to DLGF, and him and I, the field rep and I, Sam, we worked on it together today, is we took both maximum levies and just added them together. Because we don't know about lit, and the other part of the Senate bill is that within this capital projects plan, it enables them, I say them being whoever wants to look at it, to see what your unrestricted funds are, which within the townships, there are extra, we'll just call them extra funds. And so this plan calculates an amount that I like to call is up for grabs. It's going to be available to be moved into an infrastructure, a road and infrastructure fund. So down the road, the cash that the township may have on hands right now, the possibility is going to diminish over time. So,
So like our rainy day fund,
That
that's
rainy-
20,000, let's just throw it up there.
yeah,
Then that can go away
30%
pretty quick.
of the, 30% of the unrestricted
Share.
amount. That's the calculation for next year. I've only done it for, the 1 year, but, I would predict that as those funds are uncommitted and that cash is not gonna be allowed just to stay there and remain unused.
Okay.
So that's the reason that it's my recommendation not to, you could say, well, we're saving 12,000, let's cut our maximum levy 12,000. I don't recommend that, because, in, what is it, 2028, you may not have any new distribution.
In my opinion, and a lot of people misconstrue that the levy is what results in the tax. The budget is what results in the tax. The levy just says this is the maximum amount you can tax. I would not reduce the levy at all, and if under any circumstance, if you can get some increases, try. Just raises your ceiling. You don't have to budget to the ceiling, and you don't have to spend to that ceiling. But you have no idea what's coming in the future in terms of future needs or future plans. You may now have to create these infrastructure funds where you set some aside if you don't have a purpose for them. You may look at those things and find that there are other purposes, whether it's a cemetery project, a meat project you want to do, you want to participate with someone on a community shelter, or like a park project, and say, hey, $5,000–6,000 for roads, that's not meaningful in what's needed for our roads and infrastructure, but it might be very meaningful for a different project. What this is doing is two things. One, the legislature was tasked with finding $200 million of lost road revenue. And they just went all around. It's a big kitchen sink bill. Your DoorDash is gonna get taxed, and your Amazon is gonna get taxed, and all this other stuff. And some popular, some unpopular, is where they're discussing the interstate tolls. And then this was thrown in because someone believes that there's $750 million resting or residing with townships. Well, did they take that snapshot when did they take it in December when the big township-based fire departments have 6 months of revenue? Did they also included, if people are building fire stations, they might have $3 or $4 million of bond revenue. That's not their money. That's the Bank of New York Mellon's money, but it got counted. And they wielded that number to say, hey, look at all this dead cash. There's probably dead cash around. There's probably cash that needs to get moved in to do something, either reducing budgets or get it moving. I think you'll see some small transportation projects done with this. You don't have to conquer that in this process, but we will have to do a capital plan next year and every year going forward. I think it's a great tool. You're going to sit down and you're going to look at your restricted and unrestricted funds, and you'll have conversations. Is there something next year we should get involved in? Well, nope. Okay. There's $3 grand in the infrastructure fund.
Anyway, I need to get off on that sidetrack, because you do not have to deal with that in this,
Right.
under this, but that is a factor in all of this, in all the consideration in looking ahead, for revenue, so.
I think this is, I hope to God this never happens, but if you read everything and see the news, everybody's getting flooded. There's rain every place that we don't need. Several years ago, we got that 8-inch rain in one day, or so many hours, and there was talk that maybe the dam at Land Lake might not be able to handle it. If so, that would probably, it would You know, I'm just looking at, if that ever happens, we had some extra money that we, you know, thought that would be a thing sometime. And then you get into the point of, if there isn't money that nobody, no trustee can handle the whole thing, then do we go to the county, or do we go to the state for assistance, or where does that all come about?
Well, dealing with those kinds of projects are not within the scope of the trustees' duties and obligations. We can do transportation. I'm in the middle of one in Hamilton County where 8 units are participating on a pedestrian bridge with trailheads and all this other stuff. And we were just kind of, when this state representative was like, you know, you have to get involved, and we're just like, some people already are. They haven't waited for you. They found ways to collaborate on it. You're gonna have someone, you're gonna probably have to have state, county, and several others to step up and participate on something that size, and I think you're probably in a conservancy district too. If they get together and say, hey, we wanna collaborate on something, that's the kind of thing you can participate on. To be frank, you're not gonna have the right number of decimals in what you have for what a project like that's gonna need. That's you know, that's a massive engineering project. So you can be a token participant and say, hey, we've got some infrastructure money. When that time comes, you have the say, or the board has the say on what projects it wants to participate in and with what units it wants to participate with. But you do have to set that money aside if you have that spare unrestricted money.
Okay. I just had a hypothetical question.
And you could participate on that in the future. Hopefully, though, you're never asked to, because you want that planned for. You don't want to react to something like that.
Gail, what was the name of the plan, the new requirement? What did you call that? That you have to
Capital improvement plan.
Capital improvement plan, okay.
That has to be done by the 30th of September. So depending on our timing for this, you guys may do CIPs that kind of blend into.
Your CIP probably will be signed at your second budget meeting, which is what, September? 23rd, yeah, because it has to be submitted by the 3rd.
So we'll have to do ours.
Oh, so you'll have to do yours at the first meeting, yeah, we talked about that already, yeah. So, I've covered the savings, the rate that I've calculated, total rate was, I mean, this is earth shattering, the total rate for both townships was 0.0166, that's 1 penny, 0166, and the new rate is 0.0093 with a reduction of 0.0073. So, you know, in the big scheme of things, the township portion of the total tax rate is very small. So, you know, that's what I came up with on that. Like I said, the other thing is that DLGF really wants this financial information ahead of the final signing so that they can start preparing the new maximum levy sheet and all that. And I agreed to that because they're trying to help. They're really trying to help with this merger. So I told them that after this meeting tonight, I would present them with what we have to present. Now, I didn't ask for an increase in levy. Because, you know, our goal is to reduce costs. So, and we kind of talked about that, well, you and I did, and so even though, you know, now would be the time for them to set a brand new maximum levy, as it stands right now, we are not actually asking for, and the only increase we're asking for is the 4% over and above last year's of what everyone gets. So, I mean, the numbers just don't, the current numbers that we have with the cash balances that we have, it just doesn't look like we need. I mean, you know, you can only present what's there, and it just doesn't look like we need additional maximum levies. so.
The only way I would look at that is, and I'm still always saying this as a pro forma. If you were to foresee, hey, I'm gonna turn, we've been and I have no idea, but if you've been living on lit at all and you go, hey, I wanna turn it off and see what life looks like in a lit-free world, because you can't count on getting any. But I certainly wouldn't give much levy back. Like I said, you can always budget under, you can always spend under, but events where you can reset your levy are extremely rare. They just don't exist.
I know, we've discussed that a little bit, and that's, that can be done. It can definitely be done. It's just hard to know what that future is gonna look like, that's the thing. It's hard to know whether, each county council, as I understand it, is gonna, everybody's gonna be in for their little piece of the action, and, if you be in a new township, if you go to the, county council and say, we wanna request about the same amount of lit that we've been getting over the past years, who knows, they might say fine, and, you might be able to. I don't know what that's gonna look like. I got a feeling everybody's gonna wanna get a little piece of the action. It's not gonna be an automatic anymore, so it's gonna be up to each individual county, and I just don't have any idea what that's gonna look like. What do you think, Jeff?
The only thing I would look at on the question of whether or not you should ask for increased levy is, if you were to just look at past years, would they be able to function in those years if they did not have lit? And then you could go to them and say, we don't want, we're looking at a reasonable future plan to provide the same level of service with perhaps some buffering in the realm of assistance. Other than that, if it's just a matter that, reserves or setback or whatever has been mostly lit, or they just haven't been getting a lot of lit because of very low existing levies, then it may be irrelevant. I'm talking kind of formula rather than seeing hard numbers.
Right.
I would just hate for you to reduce levy and then lit goes away and new lits are not adopted. And then you're like, hey, I missed this opportunity to get reset to make sure we can continue to operate at the level we're operating. And they're like, well, sorry, And the levy, and what you do in asking for levy, that's not gonna change your savings. Your savings will remain the same.
It's not gonna affect that.
Shouldn't affect it. The levy is just saying, this is what we anticipate in the most challenging circumstances, the amount we would need to effectively operate the combined township. But if you feel like the savings are adequate, that it's not necessary, that's fine. I'm just worried about, this is a one-time, perhaps in my career event, that we're gonna take a stream of revenue all these units have kind of counted on and planned on, maybe even borrowed against or built against, and just like a light switch,
Turn them off.
or turn it off. And so, if it's a problem, if it makes it too tight, we should ask for, hey, we don't wanna have a substantial reduction of levy because we're gonna have a substantial reduction of lit. And I think DLGF they would listen to that. They would say, yeah, we understand you're gonna have the revenue stream just go away completely. I just don't know how much lit you get now.
Well, they get, between the two townships, about this current year, 30,000, 31,000 between the two townships. The problem as I see it is they've got a lot of cash, and this cash is gonna show up in that capital improvement plan as being unrestricted. And so it's kind of like, okay, we're asking for more money over here in the levy, but then in the CEI, in the capital improvement plan, we're saying that we have like this much unrestricted, which I don't have that number just right yet, and I mean, I am willing, it's up to you guys. It's up to you guys, you can request what, I'm certain that DLGF would not reduce the levy below. I mean, they're not gonna look at this thing and say, well, you're saving $12,000, so we're gonna reduce your levy by 12. They're not gonna do that. Granting you the typical 4% increase, I'm sure that won't be a problem. Asking for more may not be a problem either, if that's what you decide to do. I'm more than willing to change all the numbers, but I'm not gonna be the one to make that decision.
I have padded township assistants, I have padded general quite a bit, because I didn't know what all this was gonna cost, you know, and we're totally out, you know, I have no idea, uncharted wise. Bill is talking about adding something to the general fund so that we can give away funds.
You can't give away money.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not allowed to give away money.
Right, not give away, but you know, like Jonetta gives to the food pantry. We don't do all that.
Okay.
That is what he's talking about, and I'm not comfortable with doing that. But, I mean, we can have a meeting and discuss it again. That I have padded, well, you can tell my budget from last year compared to, this one that I've got coming up, I've put a lot of money in there. So, I guess we'll have a meeting and talk about it.
Yeah, whether or not you do a community service contract, and you're allowed to do that, and it sounds like there might be some reserved cash. Well, this is exactly why you want to look at that cash that's reserved if you feel like there is a need through food pantry or whatever. That's right in your wheelhouse. My only point is you are about to have a stream of revenue be shut off. And so don't double bottleneck yourself in pulling back your levy a little bit and having the income tax shut off, because you might be cash high right now. That'll come down. You know, if you're gonna have to spend against reserves, then this is not sustainable. So I think you need to look at, yes, in the current and this is the problem DLGF's gonna have. If DLGF only looks at this and the next, they only look this far out. You gotta look a little farther out and say, I'm planning on not having income tax. I think for us to operate the proposed budget year over year over year with 4% or whatever, we need a levy that equals X. And if, Gail, you feel comfortable that your proposed number will meet that year over year, then you're good to go.
I'm only comfortable because I'm anticipating that the township will go, I'm anticipating all the townships will go to county council and request a lift. If you don't think you're going to do that, then I do think we need to look at a higher levy. I don't know that we need to add 30,000 onto it, but maybe, I mean, we could, you know, but there's really no scientific way to come up with that number.
I don't
know
But
of.
since we're not really for sure on any of this, you know, what's actually gonna happen down the road and all,
Mhm.
would it be better to add a little? Is it too much work to add a
No,
little
it's
bit to
not
the
too
levy?
much, not at all.
Based on
Not at
what
all.
you said there, what I would do is I would go up thinking you won't get it. Then if you have lit come in, you budget lower. Hey, I'm supplementing with some lit and we're gonna be able to do what we need to do. So all you're doing is saying, I can go up to this point if I have to continue to operate. I've not seen the numbers, this is the first conversation about it. I am concerned that you will not have enough revenue in a lit-free world. I mean, the assembly did a really good job. Put the white hat on and said, tax relief. Then handed these tools out to the county council and say, and they're all black hats. You're gonna have to increase taxes of the things we're turning on. They did give replacement, but the county will have to approve those. And it may be hard, they may not want to. They may not want to issue new income taxes. I don't know. So I think you have to plan to be able to operate as if you will never get it. And then if you don't need it, fantastic.
You know, I hate to see the trustee get the position down the road because we didn't maybe raise the levy.
I agree with you.
And see
So it's not gonna look to the public like you're merging to be efficient.
Well,
But Jeff's absolutely right, you know, he's absolutely right, what he's saying as far as future revenue.
Now, to be concerned, to me, be concerned about spending money, instead of trying to save money, I just don't think that's what trustees are supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be on the floor, we're supposed to be, like I said, meetings, that kind of stuff, so, you know, I mean,
So right now, I had anticipated asking the OGF for a maximum levy of $59,579. And
you think that's too big a jump?
no, that's not a jump. I think that's what I'm saying, we could add to that the anticipation.
Oh, that's what our levy is now.
That's what I'm asking for next year for the combined levy of
Okay.
both townships.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Currently, Hensley's levy is about 17,000, right, 18,000, something like that. And Nineveh's is closer to 40,000, so we're really not asking for an increase at all, other than what they would normally get. However, to Jeff's point about possibly the lid going away, there's 30,000 that the unit may not get after 2027. So how many years is it gonna take of not getting that lid for your cash balance to dwindle down? You know. So with that being said, we could add 15,000 to that 59,000. So it's gonna make the levy go from, 60,000 to 75,000. That's up to your board. Good for the township, income wise, to the taxpayers, it's probably gonna look like you're not really being very efficient, in my opinion, so.
Well, I respond to that because a lot of people have dealt with that, and there's no lonelier meeting than your budget meetings. You couldn't find a guest at a budget meeting. What you budget is what matters. What you budget is where that comes out as to what the actual tax comes out to be. So I just don't want you to be in a position where you regret having done this, that you're gonna have net relief in that. There has to be a way to do a little bit of forecasting to see how much lit have you been spending in the past. Clearly not all of it, because you've been accumulating some cash. I think you're gonna spend that down, that's gonna come back down one way or another. You're gonna be a lot closer. They've just not been spending that at max yet, because the lit has held that out. So they're gonna spend up to the maximum levy, whatever it ends up being at some point.
We've been pretty lucky on, poor relief from things. We haven't spent out a whole lot of money. But nobody knows what 26 and 27 is gonna come to on poor relief and stuff. So I'd like to see the levy raise. Is that gonna be up to each board to decide that, or can we do that now, or?
Well, you can tell her that you wanna see a modified budget or modified increase on the basis of, there's a justification as to what's there.
I can present it, I can redo it and present it on the basis that our concern is that the lit's gonna go away in 2 years. Yeah,
Okay.
I can do that. And I can send all the paperwork to these guys, and then, but I mean, you're probably looking at, rate-wise, you're looking at going from requesting a levy of, say, 60,000 to maybe 75,000. Rate-wise, it's not gonna be very much, because the rate's so small anyway. And then the DLGF is gonna do what they want. They're gonna decide, they're gonna either say yes, or they're gonna reduce it, or they're gonna, so,
I agree with that, and if you get lit in the future, then you have a lower actual budgeted amount that goes through our property taxes. It's just, I hate for you to put a hand behind your back and say, no, we're gonna go to a levy that anticipates our old lit numbers. Those are leaving and never coming back. That formula for receiving lit has been sent to the ash bin. It will never be back. It's a totally new way they're gonna do it, and you may not get it. So,
Is everyone comfortable with are you comfortable with that?
I'm not, but, I don't have
That's kind of
the
like,
votes.
yeah.
I see that our commissioner over there, like, squirming in the seat would be like for him to talk about
I just
what
wanna go
he
through the
knows.
ceiling right now, to be honest with you.
He is just.
May I speak?
Sure.
I deal with this issue every year, have for the last 10 years on township trustees. And what I deal with are the issues of these townships hoarding money, spending money, and that's what you always hear about from the state. And whether we want to believe it or not, the state does have control over what the townships do. They have control over what we do as the county. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna raise our levy, and we're gonna tell the state that we can't live within our means, so we're raising our levy because we don't believe in what they're doing. And how do you think the DLGF or the state's gonna react to that? And I'm just telling you the idea, this is the mentality that I deal with continually at the state level. Is that what we wanna feed the state? And I know, yes, you can do it, it's absolutely within your means to do it, but is it the wise thing to do? You don't even know what they're gonna do with lit yet, you don't know what the county council's gonna do with lit yet. I've had a lot of discussion with our council, and we understand that there's gonna be some issues and some shortages that we're gonna have to deal with, and Johnson County's in really good shape because we do the right thing and we do things correctly in our county. The governor's already admitted that. Johnson County does fine. My concern is how we signal to the state on how we're gonna react to this as a township trustee. You're already getting, and I'm just being honest, you're already getting beat up all the time at the legislative level because of the way some things are done. Okay, but more than that, I wanna really explain to is, and Mr. Meredith's asking the question, can we change the line items in the budget for Hensley Township? But my question would be is if you change the budget or you raise put another line item in the Hensley Township budget, when you vote to do this merger come January 1 of 2026, that budget doesn't matter anyway because it goes to the combined budget. So if you don't get what you want in the combined budget, it's not gonna do you any good. Raising Hensley Township's line item or budget's not gonna do you any good if you do this merger. Now, if the merger doesn't happen, then you've got your line item in your budget for Hensley Township. If the merger happens, your budget for Hensley Township doesn't matter anymore. It's gotta be the combined budget that's being worked from. Am I incorrect in that?
No, you're correct.
So,
That's why I said.
I don't think
now
that
it's-
Mr. Meredith was getting his question answered that he was asking. I think he thinks if he raises the line item budget in Hensley Township budget, it's gonna stick, and that's not true.
Well,
Correct.
what I was trying to explain was that if that's what you would do, we need to carry that increase into.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I thought we said you need to do it both places.
Yes, we need to do it both ways to make sure.
But it's gotta go into both. It can't go into just Hensley because that won't do any good.
We're anticipating that Hensley budget won't exist next year,
Right.
so, yes.
Does that answer your question, Bill, that you were asking?
I understand it. I'm not saying I'm in favor of it. I understand it. Even if we present this line on levy, is there a chance it could be knocked down?
The DLGF could, yes.
Huh?
The DLGF could knock it down, yes.
They'll make the decision.
That's-
Because your county council at this point is just a pass-through. Basically, they just say, okay, we're not gonna fight with you over it, is what that is. Now, that'll change, of course, under the new SCA 1. That all goes through the county council at that point. But I don't anticipate lets being just done away with in any of those areas, not in Johnson Johnson County, I can't answer for other counties, but I think the council's done a really good job of working with us as commissioners and us working with them to make sure that we're gonna be fair about things and how we do things. Doesn't mean you're gonna get the same lit amount you're getting now, but it doesn't mean that they're gonna take a knife and cut us rough either. And I hope we don't do that in Johnson County. Can't guarantee that, but that is my hope.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, so, we don't have a crystal ball. I mean, the whole purpose of the merger, we're trying to make a statement that we know what kind of condition townships are in across the state. There's discussion every year whether we're going to, do away with township government. And I completely understand what you're saying. How well do you feel like you padded Nineveh? You better feel like she padded hers.
Yeah, I feel like there's like some things that she put in hers, that whenever I did the merge budget, we had talked about it, but then I was like, okay, I can change, I can go up here and go up here, and there was a couple of things that I did, so I feel good about what
We
the
have
merge budget.
never, as long as I've been involved in Nineveh Township, we've never run out of money. We've always had, we're sad because we're not helping, with poor river. We sat and scratched our heads, where are these people, why are we, and I keep stating, when we are no longer serving the purpose for which the statute created us, then why do we exist? I mean, that this is an effort to take a step in that direction, the end result here could still be, maybe sooner than later, that township government is done away with. I mean, that's always, I think that's always gonna be on the agenda at the State House and on someone's agenda. I think as more townships try to merge, we might be able to hang on for a little while longer, because we're making an effort, to be more efficient. So, how do you other board members feel about raising the levy? Opinion one way or the other? I mean, we definitely wanna make sure we have enough to operate.
What is our combined cash expected at the end of this year?
Well, the June 30th combined cash balances are about like 330,000.
I mean, $330,000, wow, between the two of us.
Well, it should be an adequate buffer.
And we've been helping people, I just want that to be said.
Yeah.
We have been helping people. So that has been
We had
pretty
years before
consistent.
we had years when
But you have to realize how many people apply for assistance.
Right, and I've had some that I would explain and, nope, they're not willing to do the work.
It's too
And I have
hard.
others that can't get
It's
it to
too
me
hard,
fast
that's
enough.
why they won't.
Yeah,
And, they're not gonna go to that effort, they're
Right.
looking for the handout, not the
Right.
handout.
but I've had others that like, seriously, they can't get the stuff to me fast enough, so I can see and go through the process with them, because they do need it. And,
But here's my
Yeah.
point, you've got all this excess, and, you're giving to the food pantry, which, now more people will go to a food pantry than will come
right,
and ask for, what we used to call it, poor relief,
Well, they do it also because they don't have accountability, they can just go
Exactly.
up there and take it.
Exactly, but we want to assume it because they
Yes.
need that little bit of help.
That they need it.
But this would raise the taxes, it affects everybody. And let's face it, this area, because this is where I live, and this is, I know that this is an older community, and we're taxed to death. I mean, it's property taxes, stupid ridiculous, you know. I've got many friends that are, you know, could lose their homes that they paid for because they can't pay the property tax. So, you know, raising anything at all is not gonna make you very popular. Nobody wants to see any kind of a tax raise, I don't care if it is a penny. Everywhere you go, it's raised.
Let's consider this too, and we need to understand this. Right now, through grants and federal government programs, Social Security, whatever you wanna look at right now, there are so many handouts being given to the people right now that township trustees or that kind of money, those funds aren't being needed right now because they have restrictions on them and how people can use them, and they have to give up a little bit of their life to the trustees to make sure that they're doing what they should do, right? It will come back to the trustees, and that's what I'm saying, and that's what we need to depend on. Sooner or later, that poor relief will come back to the trustees because the federal government and the state's gonna quit giving out all these funds that they're giving out because they have people going through this stuff and checking out the waste and where the money's going. So this relief and these people that have made a program out of this assistance that they get from the state and the federal government, that's gonna come to an end. That's when the trustees are gonna become really, really important. And that's what the state's missing, and that's what I want you to understand that I'm fighting for at the state level is the purpose that you all serve as trustees and as boards to trustees. That is going to come back to you, and that is going to be a burden that you all need to be prepared to start working with. It will come back. It's not being utilized as it was before now just because of all these other programs, but those will end. So always keep that in mind in anything you're planning. I don't care what anybody says, our township trustees are important to this state, they're important to the communities, and I'll always fight for that in maintaining those. Maybe it needs to change a little bit, I get that, the state does have a point in some cases, not here. We do real well in our county. So just know that going in, you've got support, you're not out here on your own. At the ICC level, the Indiana County Commissioners, we're fighting just as hard as anybody else for township trustees. So don't believe some of the things you hear. There are people that do understand what you all are about and what you're doing. And I know that's not answering any questions, but that's just a positive about what you do.
Are there any other comments? Is anybody else? Okay, well, it looks like what we need to accomplish this evening is, if we decide to move forward with the merge, to enter hearing dates. So I guess our first step would be, if we're still in favor, we kind of agreed at the last meeting, we went around the table, Aaron is not here tonight. And just kind of said whether we were in favor of it or not. I believe Bill abstained when we went around, and, I think everybody else was in favor of it. So, I guess we need to confirm that before we decide on a date. So, all board members in favor of proceeding with the merger, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Unanimous.
Are the resolutions, Jeff, identical except for the wording?
Pretty much, they have to mirror each other, so they have to mirror.
Okay, so we had a unanimous agreement on that, so we need to pick a date that we can hold our hearing.
Our issue because the 29th of August, that's a Friday, so I doubt we want to go on a Friday at,
Tuesday after that week.
so, 29th, September 2nd.
Yeah, we talked about that, we were really, how are you guys on September seventh, same time, 6 o'clock? About anything. Shall I try to make it over like maybe at the library or however, or you want to do it here again? I don't know, I haven't, since they just switched over to that, I could find out, but.
Yeah, that's what I did, that's what I went over, yeah, I was wondering if there was like an offer.
They are in the process of making some improvements.
I saw
So
some
they're
discussion,
done.
yeah.
I've seen them over there working. I'm just not sure.
And I got a town hall over there too, or like I say, we can just come back to here.
Doesn't matter.
Town hall is a nice meeting room.
Well, is this probably easier?
September
than-
2nd, is that?
We just have to find out. if they-
Kind of decided on,
Yeah, Tuesday, September 2nd at 6 p.m.
6 o'clock?
And then our trustees will let us know where.
That's good.
Well, yeah, I need to know for the notice,
Okay.
so,
You'll have to get with whatever building to see if it's available before we can publish.
The library doesn't need a hearing. It's you. We just have to get everybody. Yeah, yeah.
I thought there was that new building, is that what you're
That's what I said,
talking about?
I was
Oh, the new building?
Yeah,
Yeah, we can do
the
that.
new building.
Do you have connections, right?
I'll check with,
All right. Yeah, we can let you guys know.
So September the 2nd at 6 o'clock,
Yeah.
same place?
Yeah, well,
We'll find out where we'll
new
go.
place.
we may try to go over to Trafalgar and do it in Trafalgar instead.
Behind the library. The building's behind the library.
the signing tonight.
No, the other thing that we needed to make sure we did was, review the savings. And Gail, let us know what that was going to be. I think the only other open item that we have is whether or not, there's going to be any increases to the budget. So I would suggest that.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, if there is a board member that has a suggestion, speak to your trustee and, Jonetta puts the budget together, she lets us know beforehand if there's any areas where we need increases or maybe a decrease if we didn't use a line item. And that's just kind of how we've always done it, so. This, but, I would suggest that you get with the trustee and they will get with Gail.
May I make a suggestion? Are all the board members here tonight?
We're missing one.
I'm going to make a suggestion that we try to come to that budget tonight. Only because the timeframe, Department of Finance will start working on all this financial data as soon as I get it to them. If we wait until, and it's entirely, but if we wait until the next meeting to decide that, first of all, you're gonna have potentially more people there. I just recommend you,
I have to have, the draft resolution has to be a final, and the savings, up, down, the net numbers have to be a net, so.
so,
From kind of what I heard globally, and I didn't have complete information, I didn't know you had the cash reserve such that it was. And if you have proposed budgets at a worst case level, hey, what's,
I think we do.
if you've got proposed budgets at worst case level, I think you've got a single wild card, and that is how much additional for your special item would you like to add? And I think that'd be the only plus up. If there's a few hundred to 1,000 that you want to more actively do, poor relief through food banks. Food banks are within, lots of townships have them, and lots of them contribute. They say, I'm not gonna compete with the church. It has no sense to compete and have two, let's have one really good one. Some have their own, it just depends. I'd have that be the only change you make. And then, when you've got adequate additional reserve funds that, if you wanna do more than that, or you wanna do something different, you can do an additional appropriation next year with that group. Yeah, you got too many plays in the air right now to do it this year. But if you wanna add something, I'd say add it now to your budget and your budget, but tell her now so she can make the changes. Without that being, a lit anticipation, I think his comments, if you can rely on that.
I think, and that's what I thought too, that we were, I really feel like the county councils, for the most part, are gonna try to treat the townships and the Americans fairly.
They understand, and they've been put under some pressure and regulation by the state and how much they can do for those type entities and those things. But I think you're gonna find out, there's some counties that are gonna have to really short that because they've overused their lit in the past. Johnson County is not one of those counties. We have done really well with our lit and how we do things in the certain county we are. So there's gonna be some discussion, but it will be discussion between council commissioners, financial people, attorneys, to make sure that we do everything that we can to make good on what we're supposed to do. But
And that was
again,
my
you can't,
thought.
that's not a promise.
I know, and it's not a promise, but that's my thought exactly. Also, I personally, and I think these ladies too, feel comfortable with what we come up with. So we've redone the budget a couple of times and keep, padding a little more just to be sure.
Well, frankly, it's gonna be a minute before you DD lit. I mean, they turn lit off, you're gonna have another couple of years of lit. I've heard, but I don't know, there'll be perhaps a little true up payment in 28,
Could be.
and then that's it. So it'll be 28 before you have to visit this. You've got some reserve that's available to carry you through. And then, once that reserve starts, frankly, because of the way the state has written the certified shares formula, that's why you've got the 330. They haven't scrutinized it. They just said, hey, you just get this percentage.
That's exactly right.
And some people, it's not enough. The ones that are doing fire, probably it's not enough, but others, there's ways that you can deploy that. I honestly would just, whatever your additional project is, I'd add that on, call it good. And then, I do think it's gonna take a couple, 3 years to figure out, what's this all feel like? We've only been doing it this way my entire career.
It's gonna change.
Sure.
It's gonna change starting January of next year. The committees are meeting in September. We're gonna start seeing changes to SB 1 and SCA in 2026. I've already talked to Senator Holden, it's Hatter, Thompson. They all agree things are gonna have to change. I don't know where we're gonna end up, but we're gonna continue to fight our end,
Yeah.
is all I can tell you.
But I think we're a couple years before the change comes
At least.
through. And then you've got adequate buffer. You can look at your CIP to deploy some of that 300 or to preserve some of that. But then some of it may put forward for infrastructure, but I would just say, so you can go forward, and I think everybody seems to be kind of tracking the same, that this is good for the property owner, the taxpayer, the assistance applicant, and the staff, that works on it. do we know that additional sum? How soon do you need it to be able to?
Oh, the additional amount to add to the budget?
Just that little, additional line item,
I mean, I won't publish anything until we know.
So Bill, how much money did you want to give away?
I have no idea, Beth. You know, we've talked about doing
Oh,
some
you've
things.
talked about it, and
Here's the thing, I don't know what type of projects, if they're like cemetery repairs.
he's talking about like Lord's Locker, like she gives to, the food pantry, so give some money to Lord's Locker. Which at the, by the end of this year, maybe I'll have an extra couple $1,000 we can give Lord's Locker.
Several years ago, we did an environmental thing with the school corporation.
Planted trees.
Yeah.
Planted
It was
a bunch of trees and stuff that was beneficial
But I
for
had
them.
enough in my budget to do it.
Yeah.
It was,
And I don't know what other things we would be available to do that with. They're gonna take 30% this year, don't tell them what they could take the next year.
Well, they're not taking it, they're not necessarily taking it.
They can though.
well, you have to make it available and the board decides what projects to participate on. And, they have to be within the boundaries of the township. They can't,
Right.
Certainly curb and gutter is probably badly needed in, White River Township or in Greenwood. Your funds will not go that direction. And if anything, I look at it from a silver lining perspective. Let's say you start to get a little bit of balance there and there are low spots or drainage spots or roads that are needing attention, you go on his door and you say, tell you what, I'll pay the engineer and you pay, he's gonna look at projects and go, I got somebody loss leading the front end of this, I'm gonna get involved in that project because they're motivated and assistant. I think it actually starts to put the unit with some skin in the game.
See, I would rather see it go to our council or commissioners to do things like you're saying, repairs or, bad spots and things like that, than to see it go to the highway system.
And it's gonna be within the township.
Yeah.
No, it's gonna be with another unit, you can work with the municipality, you can work with the county, and it's gonna be projects that you can participate on, and if you don't think it's right, you say, I decline, I don't think it's right for us.
That's right.
But we would participate on this or that.
This will be, this year, the way it will work is we'll show what that amount is gonna be available. The fund won't even actually be instated until 2027. And then it'll be a fund within the township. It's gonna be a road and infrastructure fund under Nineveh Hensley Township. So the money will still be within your township. It will just be set aside in this road and infrastructure fund for you to decide how to use it, basically. That's the way I understand it.
How soon can we get to final draft, not final, of just if there's gonna be any adjustment to your numbers, which would flow through and adjust to your numbers? That's where we're down to right now.
Yeah.
And you've got whatever your reserve is now. So if you wanted to appropriate some rainy day money, obviously you're waiting to see, hey, I don't wanna jump in on something in September and find out we have a house fire or something worse and we've got a big assistance issue and we're short. So you may be second week of December and go, hey, yeah, well, let's do a community project. It's too early to dedicate stuff now.
I'm a little uncomfortable with throwing in some unnecessary expenditures at this point in time. Just because we're talking about merging, we're talking about lit changing. We do have a good balance, however, if we start using that balance every year, all of a sudden, we're not gonna have extra. And you always have to have your first 6 months of a cash available at least to carry you through the next year. So that's my recommendation, but it's entirely up to you guys.
How about, Beth and I will talk
considering what we've talked about, and by the end of the week, we'll have something like hard numbers and
Perfect.
good to go,
Perfect.
considering
Right, that would be great.
what you would like to.
That would be
And when you
great.
distribute it to both boards and make sure I get a copy, that way when we sit down on the second, it's not introduced, but you've had time to all digest it, because we're gonna need to discuss and vote that evening, for that.
So you've already met with DLGF on your budget, correct, or no?
My day is tomorrow.
Tomorrow, so I did that today, so the numbers are in Gateway. I can go in and change them, it's not a problem. But I won't publish anything until we know for sure. That sound good?
Another outstanding item, question for Jeff. At what point are we supposed to be deciding who stays, who?
That's, your instinct was good, because that's where I was going. I think we need to have that decided at that session, because that group will be going forward, and we won't have the six voting on, you know, we'll produce it, and this is the budget we will want to go forward on, but then they will be responsible for it. So whatever three are remaining, so need to have this discussion as to one from each for sure, and then anybody, what's maybe easiest is, you know, I'd like to retire, or I wasn't gonna run again, or whatever, if you were planning to run again, or whatever. Look to step away, because all the savings are from, you know, there's not that many copier contracts, you know, there's not that many software contracts, it's from the wages and stipends, so, make that decision and have some thought and discussion among yourselves as to, you can either go at it from, if you know you're gonna step away, let everyone know, I'm gonna step away, I'm not looking to serve on a merge board. And then of the three for each, who among them are going to be the remaining rep? And then I think it's fair to have an open discussion, who wants to stand for the at-large position. For the remainder of this term, it's all gonna be up to the larger public after this, whenever it goes to, vote. So you're really just kind of taking it for the remainder of that term.
Okay. Is anybody in a position to say now whether you're interested in staying? I know from earlier conversations, I know Johnette is interested in staying on as trustee. Beth was thinking about maybe, being a Hensley board, maybe?
You
board
what?
member?
Oh,
Hensley
yeah,
board
that
member?
would be, I'd have to run next year. You can't appoint me on your board, I don't think. I'm pretty sure.
If
it'd
she
have to be a
steps
board
away
member.
from trustee,
If you, well, that's an interesting decision. I would feel more comfortable in having an elected board person stay in a board position, but I don't think it's for like the at-large. It's a vague statute. And you would certainly have really great experience, you know, to be in that role, but I can't tell folks ultimately what they wanna do. And if that's what that group wants to do, you know, I'm not sure DLGF's in a position that they are going to highly dictate. All right, I think they're gonna look at, say, if that was what everyone's intentions were, I think they're more so gonna be looking at, does the budget come out, does the math work? Does it seem reasonable, did we do notices properly, things like that. I mean, they've cited code that says they want to support these being approved, so. If that's what that group wants to do, I'll do what I can to try and make that, find the answers on that.
I mean,
I would definitely do it, and I know you two are interested in staying, right?
I am definitely interested in staying on Nineveh. Kevin is definitely not interested in continuing. He's been on for a long time and he's ready to.
You guys,
I'm giving it up.
Well, good, good.
I think Bill is the only one interested in our board.
lot of experience, I mean, I would definitely step down if that's where you're wanting to go.
If you'd like, I'll just recite this to you really quick. So, I don't think it's fair to pick someone that's not been originally elected. But it doesn't say that. It says if two township governments merge, the resulting merged township government shall elect a 3-member township board. The voters of the resulting merged township shall elect all the members of the township board. Then 1 member must reside within the boundaries of each of the township governments that are merged. So we have to have someone who's specifically from each original locale, and then our 3rd person is a float, it's an at-large. So I think having, because you've been originally elected, that is justifiable. So I don't think that would necessarily be objectionable if that's what the groups decide, and it's all gonna be up for open election whenever everything's back around, so.
So that needs to be figured out by the next meeting, or are we gonna do that now?
I think to the extent you can narrow that while we're all together, just because it's important to use the time we have. If that's not ultimately decided, then what we will fall back to at the next, let's do this. Use the time to, talk to whoever you need to, think about whatever you need to think about. And if we get down to out of the pool, there's 3 people willing to remain, then we don't have to have any further discussion. They will be by acclamation if everyone agrees. Your board, so long as we've got 1 and somebody that would, be your float between. If we do not have an agreement, read it again, if 2 township governments merge, the resulting merged township government shall elect a 3-member township board. Elect means vote. So we will have a vote at that session, and it will be of the merged township. So we need everyone there if we can't come to an agreement on deciding who that board member is going to be, or who that 3rd person is going to be. So, use this time can't discuss it among the board. You can discuss it across the board, but no more than 2 of you can talk. But you can certainly let your trustee know, say, hey, I would like to be considered, or no, I'm gonna stand down.
Who are you missing?
From missing Kevin Jackson. You know, you, I thought,
No, I asked how.
How we just,
and he's.
Are you eligible to be a board member then?
That's what Jeff just
I
said.
think so. I think she could.
Okay.
You were talking about staying though.
Hmm?
You were talking about staying, are you still interested in staying? It'd be between me and you.
You probably need to be on there more than me. If they choose 2 out of there and 1 out of us.